It seems to be a thing, and there are people out there that have lamentably been the recipient of age discrimination in the hiring process, which is illegal, but it still happens, and usually it's not something intentional. But there was a recent survey of 1,000 hiring managers by Resume Builder, and it found that 42% consider age when reviewing resumes. Age bias by hiring managers is also difficult for a candidate to prove. Right? If they don't tell you, hey, we want somebody younger, how would you know? So some of the reasons for age-related bias against older candidates include the likelihood of retirement, potential health issues, lack of experience with technology, a fixed mindset, and a need for time off, according to some of the survey responses. But I've interviewed people on this program that said that they've seen age-related bias from other perspectives, like saying young people have way too much of an emphasis on mental health or on working from home, and if you want the job done right, you hire somebody who's a boomer. So I think this discrimination can kind of cut both ways, and job seekers can reduce this risk by making some simple changes in their resume, and I'm going to leave that to the pros to discuss. Michael Nadeau is a hiring pro, and he's the founder of a company called Cnect. Michael, welcome, sir.
Yeah, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So let's talk a little bit about this because I find it to be a very interesting topic. We've got people that are facing age discrimination, and I haven't, again, I don't hear about this regularly, and I guess because it's so hard for people to prove. But looking at this report from earlier this week, age discrimination remains a problem in the hiring process for younger candidates as well, from WTOP News. And it cites this Resume Builder survey that say 42% of people are considering age when reviewing resumes. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so look, the concept of discrimination is never going to go away. It's as real as the eclipse a couple of days ago. It's happening. And just like that eclipse happens every X amount of years, discrimination happens every second of every day. We're predisposed as human beings that we're born. We are unbiased. We only have one feeling, that's love. And then we're taught politics. We're taught race. We're taught, morals, values, religion, all this stuff. And it's predisposed in us. And hiring is the same exact way. And to think that we're ever going to remove this from the hiring process is literally never going to happen. And it's an unfortunate aspect of hiring that people feel they're discriminated against because of their age. But the realities are, you could argue both sides of the equation. Companies don't want to hire the younger generation due to multiple things that you just mentioned, right? Their work ethic, their lack of experience, their need for time off. It's a totally different generation than I grew up. And the older generation, you get down to, well, how long are they going to work for? And, how long are they going to be in the workforce? And is their medical bills going to be higher? And so all of those things, certainly they exist, but it's something that's never going to go away in terms of people have predisposed bias when they're looking at a piece of paper.
Yeah. And I'm with you there. I once heard Andy Stanley say that, some problems are problems you can solve, and some problems are actually just tensions that you have to manage, right? Or, I guess problems you have to mitigate and that can't be solved. And it sounds like that this is one of those where you want to, mitigate it to minimize the amount of occurrences. What is it that you would advise folks that are looking to hire people to keep in mind? How do they keep it merit-based?
So I believe the biggest flaw that we have in the hiring process today is we have a broken process. The world has evolved so rapidly. And I look back to, say, the world, let's call the world, the next generation of the world started in 2008, which really wasn't that long ago when you look back. I'm 50 years old, so 2008 doesn't seem that long ago to me. But the world we changed as a society in 2008. And by 2015, we changed again so drastically it was almost unheard of. And what happened in 2008 was we all got devices that were plugged into our ear, in our phone, in our hands, that gave us information that was unbelievable. It was easy to consume, it was easy to digest, and it was easy to access. Yet the hiring process over the last 30 years has only improved by digitizing job boards, taking the old want ads and putting them onto digital media, and a place to now put your resume where the world can find it. But the question really becomes, is your resume an accurate representation of who you are? And the answer to that is absolutely not, because behind every resume is a story. It's a story, it's a person. And so if someone were to tell me, hey, you want to watch Oppenheimer, fantastic movie. For me, it was a little slow, and it was a little long, it was a little drawn out. But I will tell you, the trailer didn't make me feel that way. The trailer to that movie made me go to the theater with my wife and sit there for 2.5 hours and try not to fall asleep. Okay? What we don't have in hiring is the ability to streamline a process. So I believe the answer to this is to be your authentic self. I believe the answer to this is to allow people to tell their story. Because at the end of the day, companies are forced to make a decision, and sometimes it falls into a category because they don't have enough data that could fall into this category of discrimination. And unfortunately, they don't have enough information to say, man, I don't really know who Rich is. I'd like to hear Rich speak. Well, fortunately for you, people can just Google Rich and hear you speak, right? But the regular world doesn't have that opportunity to tell their story. So I believe the concept of a resume is an outdated and, quite frankly, a flawed tool to represent who I am as a human being. I am 50 years old. I have been working for 30 years in the workforce. 2-page summary is not going to tell you who I am. What's going to tell you who I am is me, my voice and my tone and my desire to actually want to work there. So I think the hiring process could improve by allowing people to tell their story and bring their authentic self to nature, the way we communicate as human beings today.
You know, Michael, you bring up a lot of good points, but what goes through my head, and I guess the question that arises for me is, while I agree that, you know, it went from the classified section to monster.com and whatever it is today, LinkedIn or wherever, you know, Indeed.com. But I also think that there is that, whether you're me or somebody else, I think people are Googling people to see what comes up. You know, are you on some weird board, or are you in a Facebook post about being, you know, a serial dater or cheater or something like that? And I think some people, you know, are being judged by their social media accounts, kind of, you know, by employers, those that have a public account, which I would say, if you're not willing to be judged as a public figure, don't have a public Facebook account, right? Or one of those things. But I think that's part of it. I just don't know how much of a part of it is in the world of hiring now. What would you say is, we'll pause right here. When we come back, you can tell us your thoughts on the role that social media plays in the hiring process. Folks, we're coming right back with Michael Nadeau. Don't go anywhere. All right, folks, we're coming back with Michael Nadeau. He is a founder of a company called Cnect, C-N-E-C-T. And Michael, we were talking about the role that social media plays for some people. I read a case study not too long ago of a woman who had made some comments about the her thoughts of the riots back in 2020 and the George Floyd death and all of that. And she was fired for her position on that, which wasn't, you know, she picked a side, but it wasn't in a mean-spirited or nasty, negative, or derogatory way. She just stated her case, and they still fired her. And she took it to court, and she didn't win because of many different reasons. I think mainly the defense that she chose wasn't a really effective defense. But ultimately, I say that, you know, employers, more and more of them are implementing social media policies. And I think that's something to be aware of if you're on the market for a job. Yeah? No?
100%. So let's think about the 4 most important relationships in your life. Of course, you could expand it to 5, 6, 7, 8. Your spouse, your kids, your family, your friends, and your job. So what makes a relationship strong? Well, at the core of it, you have to have mutual values, mutual respect, mutual feelings and understanding. It's very rare for people to, and it happens. I have friends that are very left and I'm very right, and I have friends that are here and I'm very there, and we have mutual respect. But the core component of a great company is their culture. And very rarely do you find cultures that are a mixture of different chemistries. And so employers sometimes get the bad rap of, well, you're discriminating me. Well, no, maybe you're just not a great culture fit for our organization.
Maybe you suck. Right.
Maybe you're just, maybe your views are actually too wild. So the reality is what you put on social media is a representation of who you are as a human being. And ultimately, the employer has the right to make a choice to find out if you're going to be a great fit in our culture. And people waste so much time. It takes 2.5 hours to schedule a first interview, only to know in 20 seconds this isn't a great fit. It takes weeks and weeks on end to get through the hiring process. 90% of candidates don't even get any feedback. Hey, we went in another direction. Companies don't even offer them the courtesy of telling them where they're at. Yet we live in a world where Amazon will tell us our toothbrush that we ordered this morning is sitting on your porch.
Yeah.
And they sent me
and your Ring camera will show you.
Yeah, and they sent me 50 alerts telling me every stop of the way. And so society has changed. By the way, there is a place for everyone. There are no bad profiles. Yes, there are bad people in the world. There's a very small segment of that. But at the end of the day, there is a place for everyone. The hiring process is archaic, it's outdated, and it's not utilizing technology to its fullest. We have the ability to get to know people with a click of a button. And inversely, I can send you who I am as a company. Then you can decide whether you want to be here. Tell me, number one interview question in the entire world, tell me about yourself. Why do we have to go back and forth 5, 6, 7 times just for you to tell me about yourself? Why can't we do that at the expression of interest? So I believe the hiring process is flawed. And so when we find something that's broken in society or in the world, we tend to look at these excuses of why it's broken. Well, they're discriminating me. Well, no, actually, you're just not a great fit for that company. Right? You're just not the best fit. And there are cases where discrimination, we could argue, is completely normal and acceptable. Would a 70-year-old woman get a job at Hooters? Absolutely not. That's
right.
That's not what they're trying to accomplish. Does someone in a wheelchair deserve to be an Amazon delivery driver? They're capable of being a delivery driver. They can drive a car. They can get out of the car. They can move a package. But can they do it at the speed that's required for that job? The answer to that is no. It's no. And so what happens is we have these super obscure cases, and we want to throw up the flag and say we're discriminating people. But at the end of the day, human beings have bias. Every single human being has some sort of bias. I believe the best way to remove bias is to learn about a human being at their core. Like, who are they? Who are you? Like, what makes you happy? What are you passionate about? Why do you want to work here? And if you can do those things in a streamlined fashion, I think what will happen is we can improve the hiring process, and people will, stop blaming these excuses that are happening. I think one of the biggest problems in hiring today is that an employer gets 200 resumes in the first day, and they're forced to say, well, let me just throw out all the people that are X. And really what they're doing is discriminating. But the reason they're doing it is a lack of data to make a decision. And I'll tell you a wonderful story. A couple of years ago, 2 years ago, April, I got a resume, a digital profile through our platform. The person had completed all the things they needed to do, so as a hiring manager, it came to me. And this person, I scrolled through all their information really fast, like within 30 seconds, which is what people do. And I looked and said, I went down to his education. And he graduated high school in 1987. Well, I graduated high school in 1991. So at the time, 2 years ago, I was 48 years old. So I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, well, he's 52, 53 years old. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to fit in our culture. And I made this bias in this decision. I'm a human being. I'm not saying I'm proud of it, but that's where my brain went. But my ability to click on his video and listen to him speak, I said, oh, my Lord, this guy is articulate. He's intelligent. He's very well qualified. By the way, his experience was not that good. His resume did not make you say, we need this guy. His education didn't say, we need this guy. He would have been a guy who would have been chucked out of the screening process, but because of the ability to tell your story. So I believe the counter to this is actually the opposite approach. Don't take your dates off the resume. Be your authentic self. Use platforms like Cnect, which enables people to tell their story, to find the place that they should be at.
Yep, I think that's a good point, and one that I was actually just talking about during the break. Folks, we're on with Michael Nadeau. And, Michael, when we come back, we'll have a minute or two to wrap. And I want to get your take on being your authentic self and putting your authentic views on social media. Where do we draw the line with having free speech and exercising that free speech and employers judging the totality of that? More when we return. All right, we return with Michael Nadeau. And, Michael, we left off with your advice to be one's authentic self, which I echo. What point and how do they incorporate that with not losing touch of their own free speech?
Listen, free speech and social media is your true authentic self, and you've got to find a place that fits your true authentic self, or be very careful of what you put out there, because the concept of social media is it puts you out there, and it is for the world to see, and it's for the world to judge, and it's also for the world to make an opinion or have potential bias.
You know, and that's exactly how I see it, which is why I have no problem sharing my opinions. I'm like, hey, if you don't like him, you don't like him. Probably not going to hire me, and that's cool. And if you do, you do, and super, you'll listen to the show. Michael, I want you to let everybody listening know how they can learn more about Cnect and how they can follow you.
Yeah, thank you. So Cnect is a platform that's designed to help employers move the process quicker and get more data. But Cnect is also a platform that will allow people to tell their stories. It's connected.com, CNECTED. And you can go on there and register for a profile. It's completely free for people. We believe it's the future of hiring. So I appreciate you having me on.
You bet. Michael Nadeau, CEO of Cnect. Check them out at connected.com, CNECTED.com.